Let's start the show by talking about my sponsor, Paloma Verde, and their new website, palomaverdecbd.com. Head over to palomaverdecbd.com and check them out for all of your CBD needs. They've got the gummies, tinctures, salves. So if you're needing anything to maybe chill you out, something to help you get mellowed out, something for your joint pain and stiffness, go over to palomaverdecbd.com and give them a check out. Carlos and Vanessa are awesome people. They run a great company. And if you enter the promo code FACTS at checkout, you'll get 25% off your order. Plus, any order over $75, you get free shipping. So, I don't know what you're waiting for. Head over to palomaverdecbd.com and check them out. Let's start the show. This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast. I am trying to give up and not sell drugs, but
I've got a story about where I learned to say that to people. If you want me to start with that,
yes, let's just start with that. Everybody who's listening to the podcast, I got Remso, Martinez. I don't know. Remso does at least half a dozen shows, if not more, at this point. Remso, introduce yourself, and then let's hear why I should quit my job and sell drugs.
You see, this is why, like, I always tell people who are getting in the podcast, the best podcasts will always be the ones that happen before you hit the record button. Justin was talking about his life as, a human trafficker by day and, a 7-Eleven clerk by night or something. And, he's tired, he's working, he's hustling, he's trying to feed his 17 children and his 2 baby mamas. Those bitches got to get fed, right? So, I told him, I just looked him dead in the eyes. He looks like a child, really. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen him before, but he had like those glowing diamond eyes. And I just felt to him, it's like, tell him what you wish you could tell yourself. And I looked at him and I said, Justin, you should give up and sell drugs. Much like 2 old men said to me. So this part's a real story. Justin's actually an African-American man in his 50s. But 3 years ago, in the before times, I got to do the spirit fingers, the before times, I was not doing great, and I took a job in something called direct marketing, which is a scam because all you're doing is you're selling shit to people. But you see, it's honorable to go to someone's house and try and sell it to them. I wasn't doing that. I was selling it to people who were working like at the cash register at like Cold Stones, mall cops. I was selling it to strippers in McDonald's parking lots and, homeless people in back alleys of DC and Baltimore. And I'm in this suburb where people are known to die in Maryland. So I'm in this parking lot for like this used Chevy dealership between like a McDonald's and this place, which I think was a money laundering garage because I didn't really see any vehicles getting worked on. And, my quota, I had failed every day. I had to sell like 11 bags of like lead tainted Chinese makeup. And that shit don't sell itself. You got to just, get all your nose during the day because somebody will be dumb enough to give you $20 plus tax for it. So I go up to these 2 old men who are like about to start fighting each other. And I know it because they're loud and one guy has a slipper in his hand. And you're probably wondering where did he get the slipper. He took it off his foot and he was about to hit the other man. So I walk over and I say, hey, fellas, I'm wearing a suit and tie and I'm the only white guy in this neighborhood. So I'm like, hey, fellas, you want to buy some makeup for the ladies? And the guy looks at me. He's like, what lady you think is coming home with this face? And no, that's not a racist stereotype. That guy was also white. So there were 2 white people there. Be better. And, his friend grabs one of the bags from me and they start going through it, making fun of everything. They're like, I can get this at Walmart for 15 cents. And they just start like insulting me. He's like, you're going around trying to sell people this shit? What the fuck? You should give up and sell drugs. And 4 days later, I quit. Not to sell drugs. I was just drinking a lot. And a month later, I got a job. But the lesson of the story is life gets better.
Obviously, you live in Wisconsin now, right?
It's peaceful. I'm the rudest person in this state, and I think I'm rather nice.
I don't doubt that a bit.
They're like Canadians, but with more guns and potential road rage.
I can't say anything. I live in Indiana. It's not like we're doing a whole lot better here.
You've got 7 people in the entire state. One of them is Chris Spangle, and sometimes he's like 2 people, depending on whether he gets the Orange Theory.
Okay, this
if this is like a no fly zone, say so. But what's it like working for Chris? Because I've had like some interaction with him between Lions of Liberty stuff and then just between like and general like contact type stuff. And sometimes he seems okay, and sometimes I just want to hold the pillow over my own head. Like, well, how is it working with Chris?
Chris has truly been a friend for a long time now, but over the last couple of years, really when I worked at the Washington Times, he really became a person I could rely on for certain things. And as the program director at the We Are Libertarians Network, I can tell you, I tried to join other podcast networks, tried to team up with other people in the past, and usually it doesn't work for one of two reasons. One is because you have a good leader, but you have shitty people. And then the other one is that you have a shitty leader and bad people. Chris is one of the few people in the liberty movement who actually does what he says he's going to do. And because he's aligned a lot of his career with his passions, he's kind of stepped off as like, the meme guy as he was in the early We Are Libertarians days. And now he's really not only come into his own, but he's become a mentor and a source of knowledge and resources for other people like myself. I took about a year and a half off from podcasting. I hosted a show called the Remso Republic, and then it came back for about 50 or so episodes in 2018 as the Remso Martinez experience. And ironically, the Remso Martinez experience did really well, except the problem was time, passion, and really just having a support network, because I want to tell people that I could do everything by myself and I've just got so much infinite energy and time. But the truth is that sometimes it's okay to, ask for somebody to give you advice or, to share resources or something. So, I ended that at a point where a lot of people were like, why are you ending it? And I was just like, because I don't really think I'm in there. So I went and filmed a TV series with my brother. We did 3 seasons of that. Our show, The Witching Hour, actually ends this year. We're in the mid-season break right now. But towards the end of season 2, right before season 3, I was talking with my brother, Ryan, who's the producer and director for our show. I told him, I really like TV, but I kind of miss podcasting. There was something just a little bit more, less scripted. And by scripted, I'm not saying that our documentary series was scripted. I'm just saying that you've got so much you have to do and so much time goes into laying out the cut scenes and everything else. Like there's so much work that goes into an hour-long episode. It got to the point where it's like all this feels like we're just going in steps and I have to do something that's kind of cookie cutter. And I got to the point where it's like, yeah, I just miss the free flow of just talking to people. And he was like, maybe you should get back into podcasting. And if you don't want to do everything by yourself, I'm sure that, I see Chris Spangle is growing. I mean, Brian Nichols was on the program for about a year at that point. So I looked at my brother. I'm like, Spangle's not gonna, want me on there. I've done that stuff. I'm not a hot commodity anymore, as if I ever was. And I shit you not, a day fucking later, I'm at my desk at the Washington Times. It's around 8 p.m. So it's just me, the ghost, and the homeless person outside. And as I'm getting ready to wrap up for the night, I get a text from Chris, and he's like, Remso, I hope you're good. I'm expanding the network. And I don't know if you're doing a podcast anymore or not, but if you wanted to move and be part of the We Are Libertarians Network, we could give you the support and resources and, team that you need to be awesome and help us be awesome. And I called him back immediately. I said, Chris, I have 2 demands. One, I'm going to start a new show from scratch. That was on the run. And the second one was, I want full creative control over my show. And that was the only time we ever negotiated. And since then, we do 2 episodes a week. I bug Chris on almost a nearly daily basis, whether it's for show stuff or life stuff, because, it's not very often you have a good leader. And what's great about We Are Libertarians is that we also just have great people. So it's been one of those situations where it's like he started off literally as a hobby podcaster talking about random third party politics. And now he's a network director for shows that are bringing in tens to hundreds of thousands of downloads across the month, dealing with sales and politics and life stuff and comedy and education. And it's become what it is. So I think the one criticism that people throw at Chris, which is accurate but without context is misunderstood, is the fact that they think he gets very melodramatic and they think sometimes he sounds a bit emotional, and it's true, he is, because he's a person who genuinely wears his heart on his sleeve. And I'm not saying that because he's a big softy, but I'm saying that because he's a person who's already done this for almost 2 decades. And when he sees people come on and talk about this shit like it just happened yesterday, who could blame him for for being passionate and being a little sardonic about it? I think that just shows a sign of maturity, and that shows something that comes with just having been in the arena for so long. So whether people love him or hate him or not, Chris Spangle has made libertarianism in the United States specifically less retarded, which I can't say about a lot of people, because there are a lot of retarded libertarians.
Spend 10 minutes on Twitter and you'll find most of them.
Spend 2 minutes on Facebook and they'll find you.
Let's talk about social media. So, because there are a whole lot of different smaller platforms kind of cropping up. We've got MeWe, the short-lived Parler experience. Has that come back? What's going on with that? Not that
you ask me like I know these days.
Not, I don't mean like.
I had somebody fucking call me 2 weeks ago, and they're like, Remso, because it's been so long. Remso, I can't get into my account. Can you help me? And I'm like, ooh, that sucks. Nope, sorry. Please, man. I'm like, you're assuming I can still help you. When I left in December, I didn't just leave and look back dramatically and think I can still be a resource. I left and kicked the door down while I was out. I took my money, signed my legally binding death warrant, and I was gone. So contact customer support like a regular person, motherfucker.
They got taken down and then they came back. And then it just kind of disappeared. So
I actually did go on the other day because I'm a mask assist. I've got 28,000 people on there, probably 400 of which are actually human beings. And what I have seen is that it's tried to become more professional, it has eliminated the things that made it a competitive platform. And really, people think, oh, it was the free speech that made it competitive. No. It was the lack of company interference and the ability to grow. It was the fact that, one, you could see everybody that has witnessed your post and it's public. So people can really see whether something's popular. That, and it didn't have priority algorithms based off the media that you uploaded, whether it was text, video, a JPEG image, or something like that. It was all treated equally. So it was one of those opportunities where it's like the content that is popular will be popular because the people have made it popular, not because the company has artificially changed the playing field to make some content matter more than others. And as I see this, it's like, all they had to do was just get really good at those things. And they could have gone ahead and taken out the things that were an issue, like the fact that the app crashed every 2 days, or the fact that the web team crashed every 3 days, or the fact that the Messenger app crashed every 3 days. So, I wish them luck. Candace Owens, I don't know if I can legally say it. I think it's funny that her husband now owns it because she tried to sue the company last year. But, best of luck to him, really. I hope whatever Taiwanese sweatshop and Russian server farm they're using doesn't crash like it did in America.
So that's one of them. But, there's a whole bunch of others cropping up. So, we've got MeWe, Nomad Network, Locals, Dan Spons has his own thing, Anti-News Live. There's a bunch of different platforms. What do you think the future is for these alternative platforms? And what do you think ends up being the long-term thing with Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, because you've got BitChute, Odyssey, different competitors for YouTube. How do you see the whole thing kind of working itself out over the next who knows how long?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm gonna split it in two. When it comes into video platforms, I don't treat those as social media. I treat those as search engines. Um, Google's the number one search engine in the world. YouTube is the second, not simply because it's owned by Alphabet, which owns Google, but it's just because how it works. So it's a farm specifically for video. When it comes to social media, with everything that's popped up, everyone gets the premise. The problem is familiarity. Um, when you become so familiar of something, you tend to even avoid decent products when you could go to where you're comfortable. Now, people look at MySpace and they're like, oh, look, at one point they were talking about regulating MySpace, and MySpace was the place. The problem with MySpace and why, when people try and compare it to Facebook, it doesn't make sense is the fact that one, MySpace never went public. When MySpace went public, it brought a lot of foreign financial influence into it. So it no longer just became something as popular in the United States or even just some countries. It became a global, tour de force, so to speak. Look at the fact that they went ahead and bought Instagram, like 5, 6 years ago. Instagram was failing. Instagram was bankrupt. Snapchat didn't sell. Snapchat went bankrupt around the same time, but Instagram sold. And when you look at social media trends the last 2 years, Facebook, in terms of new accounts and the number of closed accounts on a daily basis, dropped significantly. But you had a large number of people that went and started Instagram accounts for the first time and reactivated Instagram accounts. So Instagram was like one of the biggest winners of 2020. Twitter as well, except the problem with Twitter is there's so many bots. They're saying that there will be more fake accounts on Twitter. I'm sorry, there will be more accounts on Twitter than there will be humans on Earth within less than half a decade. So, you can't even really determine whether or not most of those accounts are humans. So when I look at social media, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to say no to this idea that you're going to have stronger, more prevalent platforms come up. I just don't think they won't be owned by Facebook. I think Facebook is looking at PayPal. PayPal went ahead and bought Venmo, and PayPal is buying up all these other smaller money transferring companies and stuff like that, because they were just like, why buy it and push it out of business when we could just buy it and let it do its thing, as long as we can collect not only additional profit, but also just more information about consumer trends. So I think that if something's going to happen, it's not going to be because it chose to be a competitor of Facebook. I think it's going to be because Facebook is saying, listen, we're losing people. And when we lose people, we're losing access to the information and customers for the people that are buying ads. So when they bought WhatsApp, you can't compete with them, just buy them. I think if Facebook is looking at anything else, it's going to be less about buying up competing companies. It's going to be making more niche-oriented platforms that integrate with each other, much like how Messenger, WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram, they all integrate with each other in different ways. So I see them making, smaller micro platforms that integrate with each other, where you also don't have to have any of the other accounts to get the full experience. It'll just be optional. So, I see us getting into a technological monopoly, not through regulation, but through consumer choice. And I think that's great from a business aspect, because it's going to give you a lot of different ways to access people where they are. From a social aspect, I'm not one of those libertarians that says, well, it's a private company, so if they want to have their employees fight each other to death, let them. No, I'm afraid of any heavy concentration of power and influence anywhere. So I'm not going to say that it's any better.
Yeah, I that is an interesting take on it. Well,
I think Pornhub will actually go ahead and create a platform that can compete openly with Twitter. I think if anyone's going to do it, it would be them.
Okay, elaborate on that.
So 2018, you had a large purge of people on many of many of the internet space, so to speak, and Twitter was one of them. And what you had a lot of them do was they actually started uploading their videos to Pornhub. So you had like old man fucks Federal Reserve. It was actually a Ron Paul speech, and people watched it, and they didn't just watch it because they wanted to see it because they thought it was porn. They watched it, then they're like, oh, this is porn. Then they're like, wait, what's this guy saying? And it got to the point where it's like they have a model where because of all the probes into like human trafficking and underage porn and stuff like that, they've become a lot stricter about their verification methods, which I think is incredibly important. So not only can you verify your account, but you have access to a giant global audience, and you basically have, whether you agree with it or not, unfettered, uncensored free speech. Because how is a platform that shows all types of like, step sibling porn going to disagree with somebody talking about the reason why we left Afghanistan?
That's that's fucking incredible. Wow. Man, I never would have. I never would have considered that. I guess I don't watch.
If you're on Pornhub later and your wife is like, "What are you doing?" and you say research, you can't fucking blame me for that.
You are totally the go-to for why I'm getting in trouble for being on Pornhub from now on. Like every time from now on, if she catches me, it's just like it's Remso's fault. He talked me into this. It's research. I'm trying to stay ahead of the times. I'm trying to expand this doing podcast stuff for people and my little corner of the libertarian world and the empire I'm trying to build. And I've got to stay at least one step ahead of the game. So this is where it is.
It's like, do you want to feed our children? Because if you do, you're going to have to let me watch a lot of Pornhub to understand how this works.
Oh, that's never really been my thing, but I can make it my thing. I will dedicate myself to this to further the cause.
I'm a Liberty University grad. It's not my thing either. But when that happened, I started paying attention because I'm like, one, how does a company like this stay in business? And two, how does it handle all the outside pressure from not only other interest groups, such as people trying to shut it down because of, whether it's anti-porn or all the other stuff, which is very legitimate. They had a giant issue. But the fact that they've survived and they make money and the people on there are able to make money, you have to strip it of the context of the fact that, yeah, it's a porn site, but what is it really? It's probably the number one. It's probably the number. I don't know how many people visit it, but I think it's like the number 2 video site in the world. So imagine if somebody took that model and just reapplied it, because you've had other video platforms that were competitors. You had DTube, which was built on the Steemit blockchain, which fucking sucks. You have HugeTube, which was created by Utah Gun Exchange, which was basically a clone of Facebook, which I personally believe functioned better in many ways, except their problem was their branding. It didn't make sense. They only targeted people within the gun community. And when you do that, you're going to get everyone you want, no one else. I like Odyssey a lot. I'm learning more about Odyssey. I don't like, this might make some libertarians, bleed out their ass, but like, I don't like blockchain just for the sake of calling something blockchain. You had minds.com, which is another social media platform. I'm on Minds. I post stuff there regularly. Minds is one of the first alternative platforms I found, except my problem with Minds is that, once something goes on a blockchain, whether you delete it or not, it's still visible to somebody somehow. So imagine you go ahead and you post a lot of just explicit content that is unlawful to also post. Whether you delete it or not, it's on there forever, and the company doesn't even necessarily have control over it. So it's one of the situations where your whole revenue model, and this is why Minds has never been profitable, is based off the good intention of activist customers. And an activist customer base is not strong or sustainable enough for really anybody. You look at Tom's, for example, and Tom's is a social entrepreneurial company where it comes to the story and how they say they're not in it for the profit. But the thing is, if they weren't in it for the profit, their shitty shoes wouldn't be selling for an 80% markup. It's also just very clever marketing, because how could you go ahead and go against, an old African grandma who's making your moccasins? I mean, it's a hustle, but you got to respect the hustle. So it's like, how do we look at these things and take away the emotion, take away what we assume it is, and just look at the way it works? Parler never succeeded because it was just a free speech platform. Parler succeeded because popular content was being boosted by a popular demand of users, and the company stayed out of the way of that. So when you remove that from the system, it could be as free speech as you want, and that's what these others are. But at the end of the day, the technical features of it, which made it better, are no longer there. So it's not worth it. I've built platforms for clients and all these alternative media platforms, and I can tell you it's all been an abysmal failure. And you see the same people going on there, and they immediately have followings. I can't go into detail, but I can tell you that a few companies that really peg themselves like, oh, we're this free speech alternative, we're the conservative Twitter, we're the conservative this. A lot of those people that went on there and gained massive followings did so artificially. They weren't real. There were not that many people on the platform that were signing up, and there were not that many people liking their accounts. It was artificially done.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, having done sales and marketing type stuff like that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I mean, it would make sense that a social media company or anything like that is going to use similar sales tactics to inflate stuff and make stuff.
I had a customer one time build an account. It was a celebrity. If I told you I could tell you who they were offline, but I can't for legal reasons because I don't want to deal with people. Go into it now, but I had a person one time say, this is so strange. As soon as I got my blue check mark on Twitter, I had 500,000 people. Why is it I don't have that many people here? And I'm like, it's because you haven't done anything. You haven't told anyone. Like, what are you expecting? And it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, he's asking me to mess with some stuff. I'm sorry, we don't do that. Yeah,
you're supposed to be the fixer, Remso. That's your
and
job.
then a day later, he stopped posting anything. And then 2 days after that, here's what was funny. And you see the same formula over and over again. His Twitter account gets suspended temporarily. So what he says is that he's been banned, which a temporary suspension and a banning are two different things, but people understand the words they're using. Comes over to Parler, posts a ton of shit, extremely active. While at the same time, they're going on Fox and they're going on all these radio shows, and they're everywhere, and people are talking about them everywhere. And the moment that their account gets reinstated, they get triple the new followers. They're everywhere. Now they've got a sponsorship deal and a book deal about how hard their life was, how it was just like the Holocaust or something. And then they completely abandoned the old account.
I gotta tell you, like my 72-hour Twitter ban was 100% like the Holocaust.
I can imagine. You look emaciated.
I'm not sure how I survived. It was just all furnaces.
That's typically how it is. I mean, really, the best day in the conservative's life is when they get a Twitter suspension. There are people who actively, intentionally try and get suspended because they know the windfall that comes from it. And you could literally have done something actually terrible and actually deserve the suspension, and the same people will still completely ignore that, and they will be your ride or die. Like, you will be the Rock to somebody, just Jason Statham. Like, you are just there with them, irregardless. And it's just like, we create it. Like, I don't actually hate Jack Dorsey. I just saw Jack Dorsey as a competitor. He's a human being, unlike Mark Zuckerberg, who's a lizard person. But that's neither here nor there. Like, it just came down to the fact that I really began to see this, and it's like, the consumers are worse than the companies. When people understand how much stuff has probably been brought up to Facebook or Twitter or Google that are just completely insane that customers wanted, but the companies were like, yeah, we can't do that. It would shock you. And I've been privy to a lot of those conversations where it's like, yeah, even your most jackbooted commie sitting behind a moderator desk at Twitter is nowhere near as bad as your most liberal, vocal, like anti-free speech SJW. Like that's just the reality behind it. Like, the consumers are way more demanding of, willingly more restrictive than the companies themselves.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen or heard some of the interviews with like some of the Facebook censors, like the ones who go through all the content, and like they talk about some of the just horrid shit that they like see nonstop, like the stuff that doesn't even break through because they catch
Facebook is not a town square. Like, right. It's not. It's a fucking place for businesses to sell you their shit. I mean, that's why the product is free, because you're the product. And people a lot. I'm not mad at it. Like a lot of people got really open up to what was really going on of social media prior to that documentary. I don't remember what it's called. Social Network. No, that was the Facebook movie.
Yeah.
The Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma was a documentary that came out last year, ironically, right before the 2020 election. And I'm glad it did because, the documentary was good. The problem with the documentary is when they get to the end and all the people that were correctly citing the problems were asked, what do you do? And all those people who were all former employees of those companies are coming out with like the most like Orwellian restrictive stuff ever. So it's like the documentary was like 95% good. And then it got like 5% like police state right at the end. And then it's like, okay, I'm checking out at this point. But the issue is that people assume that things are going to basically stay the same. But the thing is, like, Facebook is just over a decade old. It freaks me out now that I tell like younger employees and contractors and people and stuff that I remember a world without YouTube in 2006. YouTube can't even YouTube is old enough to get a learner's permit to drive right now. And, when I look at this, I think Joe Rogan has a good way of saying it. He's just like, we don't know what's going on because when you look at all of human existence up to now, it was never this way. And right now we're going through all the growing pains of figuring out what this is. And I like what Dave Chappelle said yesterday. He's like, I don't care what Twitter has to say. Twitter's not a real place. And it's like people forget about that. It's really the Matrix. It's like you've got the real world, and then you've got the make-believe fun land, and it's exactly that. And I was having a conversation with my father about it today. We're talking about Twitter, and I'm like, it's a dopamine farm. Like, it's worse than crack. People bitch about me smoking cigars and stuff, but they're gonna go ahead and spend like 5 hours on Twitter. One of us is gonna be less dumb by the end of the night, and it's not gonna be me.
See, I've talked about this a few times myself. Like I use Twitter. Number one, I've had a Twitter account for forever, but before I really started getting involved with all the podcast stuff, I really didn't use it because like it's not a real place. I didn't have a lot of use for it. I followed a few like sports people that I paid attention to and listened to their shows and stuff, but I just really didn't use it. I didn't see the point. And then once I started getting involved with the Liberty community and the podcast and stuff like that, then I started getting into it. And the more I got into it, the more fun it was. But it's because of like the community that I interact with there, not necessarily because of what Twitter is. So like for me, Twitter's fun and it's a total shit show. But that's what I get out of it. Like, I don't take it seriously. There are ideas that get thrown around, and I like to dig into ideas and look at stuff and think about stuff and talk to people about stuff, and that's entertaining. But it's not something that I dedicate a whole lot of brain
So,
power.
social media doesn't make people worse. It's like money. Being rich doesn't make you a bad person. Money shows you for who you are, and social media is that way. And I have, my whole career has been social media since 2018 specifically. No, I'll even go back, say like 2017. Let's say 2017, and like, I've allowed social media to make me a bad person, and I ultimately was like, this is showing this is exposing some things about me I don't like about myself in terms of how much time I'm spending on there, what I'm really getting out of it, whether I'm happier. And now I'm stricter about it, and my social media experience is great. It's one of those things where it's like it just comes down to what it exposes about the person. And if what you see is something you don't like and you ignore it, then you're just feeding into it. Whereas if you know what you're getting out of it, it could be great. Facebook's how I made great friends. I'm sorry, social media. I'll say social media broadly. Social media is how I've made great friends. Social media is how I built a brand. Social media is how I make money. Social media is how I get around and communicate with a lot of people. So, I just had to become very restrictive about it. And I have to remind myself regularly that, like, this is not real life at the end of the day. I know somebody who, has like 70,000 followers, and she, total smoke show, like beautiful. Like she's posting I call them the smart selfies because we care about how much brain power she has. And like she's just like, you think that life is perfect, but when you know her, like, she is the most miserable person. And about a year ago, like really at the start of the pandemic, when like shit was getting wild, she quit. She quit that account, and she left all the political circles she was in and stuff like that. And she moved out of DC to Texas and became a real estate agent. And now she covers up, and she's not taking the I'm so brilliant selfies, but she's happier and her life is better. And a lot of people would say, oh, if only I had 70,000 followers. It's like, what if? I mean, it doesn't. It only does so much. Like, people make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, you only have like 3,000 followers on Twitter, a few thousand followers there. You're fucking nobody." I'm like, listen, you've got 100,000 people that like a tweet. I have hundreds of people that buy my shit and listen to me. So which of us is fucking winning? Because it's obviously not you, because you go and you cry, and then you jerk off and wonder why you're miserable. And I'm doing relatively fine with my life.
Right. I've got like 700 and a nice handful that on a daily basis I get to have good conversations with, or just talk about dumb shit and have fun. And when I put my phone down and I get off of Twitter, I smile because it was fun. And even the times when I do have disagreements with people, like, I don't get mad about it. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, I'm not I have never at any point cried about anything from Twitter or Facebook or any of it, because it's all fun. And like, I'm choosing to engage with people that are going to enrich my life. I would rather have 700 followers and have fun interacting with them than have 70,000 and be miserable all the time. Like,
I love, yeah, like I love it when I meet awesome people. Like, I love doing my shows and everything. It's a beautiful part of my life. I don't want to sound like, oh, I do it because the just cause is I'm miserable. I love it. It's the best part of my day. I love doing it. I love getting to come on and talk to people and do fun, entertaining, informative shit. But what I can definitely tell you is, like, the big emphasis for me on my show since the beginning has been like trying to reclaim your own happiness and your own sense of, self-reliance and freedom, and going after what you're passionate about in a way which balances with like the real demands of life. Like, for every really positive yuppie episode I do an episode about how difficult shit can be. And, I'm not in a position where it's like, I made millions of dollars. I'm doing fantastic shit. I still work a 9 to 5, except the difference between me and like, not, like 90% of America is that I don't have debt. I have wealth. I'm growing it. I have multiple streams of income. I'm genuinely happy, and I have a name presence within a certain community that can support me. And, the one thing that I started doing a couple months ago was I started doing jujitsu after work. And I can tell you that there's nothing more humbling. There's nothing that will remind you how small you are than when you have like 110 pound, like 19-year-old high school dropout, like completely like armbar you and make you question all your decisions leading up to this. At the end of it, he has to hug you because he thinks he hurt you and asks if you're okay. Like it's one of those situations where it's like you want to be humbled. I can find a way for you to be humbled very freaking fast. And it's things like that. It's like I wish people had more hobbies. I was thinking to myself today, it's like, I wish there was just like, I was thinking my pure inner commie utopia. It's like, I wish I could just find a random piece of land somewhere and call it Nice People Stand. And the only requirement is that you're not an asshole and everyone here is just nice and you just leave each other alone. Wouldn't that be fucking nice? And then my neighbor was loud and I thought about going over there and attacking them. So then I realized I would be excluded from my own island. But I mean, it's one of these things where it's like we like to blame things. It's like, oh, my life is bad because of Trump. Oh, my life is bad because of Biden. Oh, my life is bad because of this. It's bad because you allow it to be. Like it only shows you more of who you are. I had a really I had a really good friend and mentor. I still consider him a friend. We didn't have like an argument or a falling out or something. We just kind of drifted away from each other. Who, one, he taught me how to write properly. Second, he gave me an opportunity to really grow my name recognition in libertarian politics when I was very young, like when I was 20, 21. And, he's somebody I really considered a good friend. And at one point, he just had a complete shift in personality. And, he became a person who hated something more than he loved anything else. And I feel really bad. And I could probably reach out to this person and just ask them how they're doing, but I'm afraid they would see that as an attack. And it would just be like, no, I'm not setting you up for anything. I don't want to argue with you. I don't want to debate you. I just want to see how you were doing. The last time I spoke to him was about 2 years ago, like directly. Last time was probably 2 years ago. And it's because his cat needed surgery. And the first thing I did without having spoken to him for about 7 months before that was I gave him some money and I sent the link around. And, we were actually able to raise the money for the cat's surgery. And he was just like, oh, man, brother, thank you, all this stuff. And I was like, anytime, man, let me know if you need anything. And then right after that, he goes on to start like attacking people who think a certain way or act a certain way. And I'm just like, you had something so generous come to you at a point where you were literally out of fucking options. Like the cat would be pushing daisies if it weren't for the kindness of people. But instead of focusing on that, you're focusing on the things that you hate. Why? And it's moments like that where I look at it, I'm like, this shows a lot more insecurities about him that shows anything else about the things that he's complaining about.
That's something about society.
He should give up and sell drugs.
That's something about society in general that really, I don't know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. I've been a very pessimistic and most definitely an unpleasant person at times in my life. Like over the last year, especially this year, I've really been trying to focus on meeting the people who I engage with regularly. So like back in, I think it was March or April, I took my son to Birmingham, Alabama for a Mises Institute event and got to meet Buck Johnson.
You're like the worst fucking dad ever.
I know, right?
Who takes their kid to that? Was
fun.
WrestleMania not happening?
Hey, he got a T-shirt and he got to meet. He got to sit at the table with Buck and his wife and eat lunch and just like chit chat with them. And he was super excited about that. But so he got to meet Buck, Tho Bishop, Pete Quinones was there. For whatever reason, Jeff Dice's show is my son's favorite. He likes the book reviews.
Kid.
I got a weird kid. He likes the book reviews, and so Jeff was there, and I was like, that's Jeff Dice. Like you should go say hi to him. He's like, oh no, there's no way I can do that. I can't go talk to him. I'm like, for real, dude, just go walk up to him and talk to him. Just tell him that you like his show, and he will definitely talk to you. And he wouldn't do it. He freaked out and went and sat back down to the table. But like, he got to meet all these people. And then I took my wife. We went to the Pennsylvania Libertarian State Convention and went to the Mises Caucus events there, and got to meet Scott Horton and Shane Hazel and all kinds of people. My wife like completely big time me, and her and Dave Smith and David Fight went out to smoke a cigarette and like just abandoned me to talk to Scott Horton for 20 minutes. And then last weekend we went down to Texas to the Renegade University thing at Buck's place, and got to like hang out with all these awesome people. Like, that's been something that I've really tried to make a deliberate focus on, is going and meeting the people that we engage with, and like not just being Twitter besties, but like actually giving them a hug and saying hi and hanging out in person. Because like, as society seems to drift more in the direction of people always being mad about something, people always trying to find the things that they're miserable about, and why life is bad and all the black pills. I want to meet people, and I want to make like real personal connections and have fun with everything that we're doing. Because if we're not doing that, what's the point?
Yeah. A struggle that I have had personally, more so since I moved here than really ever before, is, I'm, and this isn't a woe is me thing. Like, I go to work and I really get along with all my coworkers and stuff. I podcast and work and I have clients. Like, I'm very social. Like, I've got enough social interaction in my life. But the thing is, like, I still struggle with loneliness. My fiance still currently works in Maryland right now. We're planning a wedding, and long story short, she's not going to be here for a while, like a long while. And then, my entire social network is back in Virginia. And, I've tried to go out and do more things and meet more people outside of the things that I already have. And that's one thing I've really benefited from jiu-jitsu. But like, somebody was like, oh, you need to go out and make more friends. And I'm like, yeah, I want to go out and do more things. I want to feel that type of interaction with people, but I don't think I need more friends, because like I'm old enough now where it's like, I think there was a study that said that every person really only has like between 3 to 5 good close friends. And honestly, I'm not going to name who they are because I want everyone to fight for that top 5. But like, really, it's true. Like, I don't really want to go out and meet new people. I just miss my close friends already, because it just so happened that, a lot of them are people I grew up with and knew for many years. So the problem with me is the fact that now, and it was really weird. I went back to Virginia a few months ago. Maybe this is a sign of adulthood. It's realizing that people can go on and live their lives and plan things without you. And that's what really hit me. And I didn't take it personally. That's how it is. It's a subconscious thing. People move on, and they should. But it was one of those things where it's just like, it makes me appreciate those relationships more. And the more I focus on maintaining those and still keeping in touch with people, at the same time doing what's healthy, which is going out, meeting new people, doing new things, gaining more experiences, getting out there, talking to strangers and stuff. Or in jiu-jitsu's case, going out there and getting choked by strangers. It's one of those situations where it's like, I had to pull off from the things where I found relative familiarity and safety and comfort in order to sometimes be uncomfortable, but understand why, which is the fact that, yeah, I feel lonely, but why is it? It's because I'm not actively doing something right now to keep those things going. And that when I do that, I feel immediately better. It's something that I see with a lot of people. Loneliness is a killer. It really is. And I've seen this with with a guy who was a radio host. He's like, Remso, I talk to tens of thousands of people every day, but I don't know if I have a person I can call at night if I'm not feeling well. And that is a sad thing to fucking say. And, now what that person does is that person goes out and runs. That person goes to the gym more. And that person, I don't know whether it was like a bowling league or something. They just needed to do something. They need to pull themselves out of everything that they were feeling and be so focused on something. That's why I'm so happy that sports are back. I never appreciated that type of stuff until it was taken away during the pandemic because of COVID. It's those things where it's like just pull yourself out and do something meaningless just for the sake of having fun, especially if you could do it with other people in person, in daylight, or something like that.
Last week I talked to Alan Mosley and we just talked about sports. We talked about rivalries and
he looks like
that.
a Southern Weird Al. I love Alan.
So we just talked sports, and he's like, after we got done, he said, there's going to be people that absolutely hate this conversation. He said, and that's their loss. And that it really is. Like, we really do. I play. My wife calls it old man basketball, and my kids call me RoboCop because I am. I wear elbow pads and knee braces and ankle braces. Like, I look full on RoboCop when I play.
You should give up and sell drugs.
I'm also getting kind of old and banged up.
It makes you feel better. I had to go to the chiropractor 2 days in a row this week.
And you're young.
I'm 26 and I had to go.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But so we do old man basketball, and it's fun. Like, none of us are, we're not breaking any world records for shooting percentages or anything like that. And we get mad at each other and push each other around, and then we get, and when we get done, we talk shit and we hug and have fun. And we did go for a while where we didn't get to do that. And I pretend that I didn't miss it, that I don't need basketball, but I haven't played in a while just because work stuff has been crazy. And it's really pissed me off these last 2 weeks because I've had opportunities that I might have gotten to play, and then I didn't get to play because either we had to cancel for something or I had something come up. And it's like, I feel like a kid again, like looking forward to that weekly basketball game.
Dude, I everything I do now, everything revolves around jiu-jitsu. And I'm not trying to be like the world's biggest badass. I'm not trying to be John Wick. I'm not trying to compete. I do it because that is where I'm at my most happy. I'm still a beginner. I really fucking suck, but I love it. And everything I do now focuses on that, not because I'm trying to do so many amazing things, but because I had to align where am I most happy. And I am so happy there. So everything that had to be a priority for me, I had to get selfish with it. Because I also know that if I don't do that, I am almost more mad at myself than otherwise. And it's also one of those things where it's like, I think people should do difficult things simply because it not only is it humbling, but it puts a lot of things in perspective. I've found that I get, I don't know about you, but I get like email rage. Like, I'll see an email from somebody and immediately the first thought I think of is murder. I don't even know what's in the body of the email. But since I started doing jujitsu, I get my ass kicked and it's incredibly hard. And, it's one of those things where it's like, it could be frustrating, but it's so fucking difficult that it makes everything else I do easier. And it wasn't just work. I talk less, and my fiance likes that on calls because now I just listen. I don't overreact as much, and maybe it's just because I'm so tired, but I'm a little bit more intentional with things. So it's one of those things where it's like, whether you're going to go run or whether you're building a hobby, I think physical is better because physical, it's gonna what's good for you, but it's also one of those things where it's like you're working a part of yourself that you wouldn't probably work throughout the day if you're sitting in an office or something. It's like, for a lot of people, this is what bothered me. There's a survey done like 2018 that talked about like millennial hobbies. And one of the top millennial hobbies, like number one for like 2-3 years running, was like Netflixing. And it's like, if you consider watching Netflix a fucking hobby, like you're in the matrix. You're fucking dead already, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that. I've talked about this a little bit. That's something that since I started getting into more of the podcast stuff, I don't do some of the things that I might have considered hobbies at one time. Like, I don't play video games at all anymore. I don't think I've actually played video games aside from like a couple times doing a like a Fortnite round with my son. I don't think I've played video games in at least 2 years. I don't.
I'm in the same boat because like everything was just work.
I don't really watch a lot of Netflix and stuff. Like I have several shows that I watch, but usually the stuff that I watch is like zone out, watch something dumb or watch something that's really crazy, or like I'll watch horror movies, or my son and I do watch a lot of like comic related stuff together and stuff like that. But like I don't have any shows that I'm just like super dedicated to like I used to be.
Do you watch The Witcher?
I did. I like
I am so when that shit comes on in a couple months, nobody better fucking talk to me because I'm not doing anything. I'll call out for work until I am done watching that season. I've waited too fucking long.
I did really enjoy the first season of that, and there are things like that that like but a lot of them I find are things that I get into with either with my wife or with my son. Like it's stuff that it's kind of deliberate. I don't have a lot of just like things that I really religiously.
It's not Justin stuff. It's communal stuff now.
Right, and it's not like I lost anything by that. In fact, I feel like I get to do that stuff with my son. I get to do that stuff with my wife. I get to do that stuff with, the Liberty community, with all of the podcasts and stuff. And it's stuff that like I don't need as much of that alone time with that thing that's mine, because I guess I've kind of grown out of that, and I think we all, I don't know, maybe not we all, but I think as we mature, and especially with the way the world has kind of gone, you start to see value, like you were talking about having a handful of close friends. I know who those are. Like I know who I could call right now if I needed something. I know who I could call and they would be there. And that's, you need to have those like meaningful connections, and the more you start to find those and build those, the less you really care about some of that other stuff that
And I think
seemed
that's
important once upon a time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everything has been going back to the source of your own power and your own choices. That's been a big buzz phrase recently I've seen, and it's like you're gonna get more value out of things that seem trivial because that's one. It's a very deliberate personal choice, but you then see the immediate gratification that comes from it. That's why when people take those small victories, they feel amazing, but then they don't feel like talking about it because they think, oh, well, I haven't done something fantastic, or oh, I'm not bitching about something else online. And that's my criticism of libertarians right now. It's that they don't want to change. They want to be victims. I think the best advocates for libertarianism are some of the people that I think libertarians hate most right now. One of them, is Jason Stapleton. And, Jason has been somebody I've looked up to since I was 19. That's how far back it goes, since I was 19. In fact, Jason was one of the first people to hire me as a copywriter when I was in college. That's how fucking old I am now. But, you've got him, and then you've got Grant Cardone, who's someone I'm a big fan of. And then you've got Andrew Tate, Cobra Tate, kickboxing James Bond motherfucker from Europe. And it's like these people, yeah, they live like these very gaudy, in-your-face lives. But what do they always say? It's not about what I'm trying to project on you. It comes down to just a few things. You can't take care of anybody if you didn't take care of yourself first. And that's not a selfish thing. It's just making sure that you've got the foundation so that when other people need a life raft, you're not going to drown with them as you go to save them. And it's one of those things. And, like I had phases where I was like super popular and stuff like that. Online and in some areas of politics and media. But let me tell you, that shit lives and dies in seconds, and then you're stuck with yourself the rest of the time. And that's what you do with that. That means it. What always, I find it kind of insulting, but it is impressive in a way where I'll meet these people who became like super famous and shot up overnight. And I knew them when they were just like Joe on the street. And then when, something goes bad or something doesn't go right, or they stop getting that immediate gratification because somebody's, because the crowd is looking at somebody else, then what they do is they just basically fucking disappear. And then they reach out to me because I was one of the few nice people that actually genuinely likes them. And they're like, you never had that, but you keep going and you're putting out good shit. And I see you doing great things. It's like, because that never fucking mattered to me. I do awesome shit because I want to do it. You think I wrote 2 books because I had fucking advance payments? No, motherfucker. I was unemployed. I wrote my first book when I was on shift at a dispatch office known as a closet as a mall cop, working first shift. And then I wrote my second book when I was also working at GameStop. And it's like, I did awesome shit because no one else was going to do awesome shit for me. And it's just like, it's a choice. I spent money on that stuff that I didn't have the money to spend it on. So I got extra jobs and shit like that. I'm not trying to make myself sound awesome. I'm just saying that it was a very deliberate and very difficult choice to do it. I remember I was a mall cop on St. Patrick's Day at one point, and I had to protect a stage at night after all the drunk white women went home. And they told me, you can sit in your car as long as your car is facing the stage, because it was all blocked off to you. Like, you had to put some effort in, but you could sit in your car because it would be freezing, and you needed to watch the stage because there was some equipment on there. I remember bringing my laptop with me, and I wrote, because I also couldn't afford Microsoft Office at the time. I wrote like 5 chapters of my first book in the notes feature on my Mac because I also didn't have internet to get access to Google Docs. Like, I wrote that from like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. And I can report that the stage was safe and none of this shit got stolen. And then I left at 5 when I got replaced. But it got to the point where it's like, I'm going to do this for me. And if it succeeds, it succeeds. If not, I still did it. And the book came on to be a bestseller anyway. So, it's one of those things where it's just like, you got to do the stuff that makes you happy. And it's like, my second book, which is my favorite book, How to Succeed in Politics and Our Forms of Devil Worship, which everyone should buy. Sales fucking sucked. Sales have never met what I consider decent. And even not comparing it to my first book, the sales just didn't happen. But I love that book. And I'm glad I wrote that book. And I got a lot of opportunities because of that book. And everyone I know that's read that book loved that book. So even though it didn't reach the same levels as the other one, and it didn't even really meet my expectations for what I thought it should be, all right wise, I'm still glad I did it. And I don't ever regret doing it. So, because no one can ever take that away from me. And, like with Second Brick Comics, for example, Mark and I started that amidst the pandemic. I got 10% pay cut from work, and I was forced to work from home the full time. And Mark was furloughed, and that motherfucker went to Mexico. And then we were like, what we're going to do? We're going to do a podcast about something that we have no relation to. We don't know people. We have no hookups. We have no name recognition. Let's do like a 30-hour long show talking about comic book from 1988 from a guy you don't know, and talk about comic shit once a week. And we're just like, fuck it, let's do it. And now it's become, a whole thing, and it's great. And it just comes down to like, if you do what you are happy doing because you love doing it, good things will come. Good things will not come because you're doing it because of that only, with that expectation, because you will burn out immediately. I have failed at more projects and shit than I've ever succeeded at. And, it just comes down to that. It's like, if you're not trying to feed your passion, it will die. That's just it. And I just, I'm so sick of seeing sad people. It's just one of those things where it's like, that's a very deliberate choice. And, when I see people bitching about it online, it's like, I've learned to stay away from getting into conversations and stuff, especially with women that have mental health advocate in their Twitter bio. Stay away from those people. You're going to have a bad day.
Something interesting, and then we'll kind of close on, wrap up. I left a job making close to $90,000 a year a number of years ago uh, to go work making $11 an hour. Not an easy transition to make, but I was infinitely happier with my $11 an hour job than I ever was in that like really good I was a regional project manager and had 6 facilities under me and traveled all the time and oversaw like multi-million dollar projects and stuff like that. And I dreaded getting up every morning and I couldn't wait to get home, and it was horrible. And I left that to go make $11 an hour, hanging out with a bunch of dudes in a warehouse, pushing, driving fork trucks around and loading shit on trailers. And it was fun. Like I would get inside of old concrete mixers and like spray them out and clean them out to get different product in. And like it was dirty and it was nasty and there was no fanfare or glory about it whatsoever. And I loved it. And those people were my family.
Oh, dude, I make fun of GameStop a lot, but I could tell you, I had more fun and I was treated better at GameStop making $7.25 an hour than 99% of the places I've ever worked at.
That's
a genuine. I love GameStop. Really, I think it's going to go out of business, and it probably should. But GameStop never did me wrong. That's the weird thing about it.
Finding a place and the people that connect to you like spiritually and where you're actually happy. That's way more important than any of the other bullshit that people seem to think are what's going to be important in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Give all your plugs and we'll call it a wrap.
Go buy my shit. Go listen to my stuff and be better. Go ahead and find everything you need to know and more. Just follow me across the internet. Hey Remso, HEYREMSO. I've got a newsletter that I do regularly. It's remso.substack.com. And you can check out my shows On the Run with Remso W. Martinez every Monday and Thursday, and the Second Print Comics podcast every Wednesday.
Thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun.